Who is real Sushobhan Avasthi?
Don't do PhD. You put 100 people of Indians in a room and very quickly we will segregate based on language, region, caste, religion. Paper chhapna is not satisfying. You see, the number of jobs actually reduce after education because you don't fall in love with technology. Came to India, wanted to set up a semiconductor plant in 1960s. He went out. Most startups fail because they are 39 something percentile, but
और वर्क को अफेक्ट करता है.
absolutely. Where to be the top in defense forces them to be innovative. The thing that hits you is loneliness. I almost left it. The Semiconductor Mission hai, Quantum Mission hai. They need to. India still invests very, very poorly in.
Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. And yes, today is the most important day of my life क्योंकि आज मैं लॉन्च करने जा रही हूँ खुद का पॉडकास्ट शो और माय फर्स्ट गेस्ट इज प्रोफेसर सुशोभन अवस्थी और he is the professor at CeNSE IISc and he is also my PhD guide. और आज ये पॉडकास्ट में हम लोगों ने सारी चीज़ें है ना टारगेट करने की कोशिश की है, सारी चीज़ कंबाइन करने की कोशिश की है. वो जेडीपी प्रिपरेशन हो जाए या फिर पीएचडी का क्या सिनारियो है इंडिया में, स्टार्टअप्स, इंडस्ट्रियल एंड सर की पर्सनल और उनके लाइफ लेसन्स, वो सब को हमने टारगेट करने की कोशिश की है. और एंड सर इज टू गुड, ही इज द बेस्ट पर्सन. और लाइक इतना सपोर्ट पीएचडी स्टूडेंट को कौन करता है, आई डोंट नो, बट ही इज अमेजिंग गाइज. एंड enjoy दिस पॉडकास्ट. आप लोगों को भी पता चल जाएगा कि सर कितने अच्छे हैं और उनका माइंडसेट क्या है और इंडिया में क्या क्या ज़रूरत हम लोगों को है. सो जस्ट enjoy the show. Good morning sir. Thank you so much for giving your time. So guys, he is my PhD guide सुशोभन अवस्थी और आज हम इनके बारे में जानेंगे और इनकी लाइफ स्टोरी क्या है वो सब के बारे में. सो सर, हम रिसर्चर और प्रोफेसर को साइड पे हटा दे तो वो इज रियल सुशोभन अवस्थी.
I have no idea. I don't know how to separate the person from identity. Probably a father.
नाइस. और आप बचपन से ऐसा साइंस में इतना इंटरेस्ट रखते थे या फिर बचपन में कोई इतना था नहीं?
Frankly speaking, I don't remember. But I guess to some extent, yes. Science did always interest me. I was always bad at math, which was interesting. I was very good at bio. So for a while, I flirted with the idea that I'll become a doctor. But engineering went out.
How?
Mostly because I did not enjoy cutting frogs and stuff like that in the lab. I just did not like the smell of blood. I did not like the way hospitals work. It just, engineering seemed crisper, and at that point I was under the mistaken belief that you need to study longer for being a doctor, you need to study shorter for being an engineer. It turned out I did a PhD which just basically took just as long.
Okay, so your whole journey is just you not like biology.
So I enjoyed biology a lot as a subject. I did very well in it. Even in high school, my highest marks were in biology. But I did not enjoy the career of a doctor as it was presented to me at that time. Frankly speaking, I did not have complete information. I sort of now appreciate more what they do. I still think it's a very noble profession. Many of decisions in life are not really well thought out. They are basically gut feel decisions that you take and then you figure out justifications for it. So it was one of those decisions. I don't regret it, but it was an arbitrary decision. I was very good at bio.
Okay. So आपने जेडबल की प्रिपरेशन कैसे की फिर?
किसके लिए?
जेडबल.
The usual coaching and all. I mean, I did not go to quota or anything like that, but there was a coaching institute in the city. Lucknow does not have a bad system, but more important than any of that was basically my peer network. I got very lucky. So in my in my section of 27, 30 students, I forget what the number was, 10 of us got into JEE. And that was a number, I think that was a peak. I mean, it did not happen before, it did not happen after. And it was just that there were 10 of us. We were all friends. We all used to sit together and we all used to help each other out. And that peer group was, seriously, I got very lucky. When I now look back, all of us, I mean, half of them are professors now. It just does not happen every day. I just got very lucky. I just was with very good friends.
सो आपको जेडब्ल्यू की प्रिपरेशन के वक्त प्रेशर या फिर होता कि मुझे आईआईटी नहीं मिलेगा तो क्या होगा वो सब?
Yes, that's why I don't actually like the system. I actually think it's kind of unfair, and if anything, it has gotten worse. Um, वो सब था, that is normal. But what helped, if you are asking how did I cope with it, by sheer preparation. I mean, to be very honest, I worked hard, and I have realized that the only way to get over nervousness in life is to be very goddamn prepared. Um, as a very personal example, I was bad at math. I always was bad at math. That was always in my head. I remember the math was the first exam in JEE, and I was giving it. And by I think the first hour, I had not solved any question. And but I was somehow able to tell myself at that point in time, don't worry. If after this much preparation, if I cannot solve the test, then it's hard, and it's hard for everybody.
हाँ.
And that allowed me to calm down, and then I was able to do many questions. So what I'm trying to say is that what matters, if you are very well prepared, nervousness gets handled.
सो सर उस टाइम पे आपको ऐसा लगा था कि नहीं होगा तो मेरी लाइफ पूरी वो हो जाएगी वो
Not
सब?
really. So I'm sort of saying the ulta. Like I'll be very blunt. I had prepared so much, and I had given so many tests, and I always used to do well. That I was able to tell myself कि if it is hard for me, it is hard for everybody. It is not कि मेरा नहीं होगा तो क्या होगा. It was more like कि अगर if I do poorly, everybody else will do worse. मेरा तब भी हो जाएगा. I'm serious. I don't know why I had that confidence, but I did.
इट्स वेरी गुड. और फिर आपके आईआईटी कानपुर की जर्नी कैसी थी फिर?
Oh, I'll be honest. I frauded most of my way through IIT Kanpur. I am very sorry to my professors, uh, at least the good ones. I had a good circle of friends. I did a lot of extracurriculars. I did enough to survive, but not enough to really score very well. So the I was the quintessential 9-pointer. Never in the running for a 10-point, but I never fell too far from 9 either. That was my
Okay.
final GPA.
नाइस. तो सर आप एवरेज स्टूडेंट थे आपकी लाइफ में?
All my, I mean, best way I would argue is that that's why I guess friend circle was so important. All my life I have never been rank one in anything in my life. I was always basically like the top 5 student. But anywhere you took me, I was top 5. Even at IIT Kanpur, I was 9-pointer, which was basically not the top 10%, but within top 20%. So I guess I'm a function of what my environment is.
और सर आपको अभी लगता है कि लोग बच्चे ज्यादा प्रेशर ले रहे हैं?
Yes. ज़्यादा ले भी रहे हैं, ज़्यादा है भी, but also I think the tools to handle the pressure कम है.
और आप आईआईटी से हो तो आपने प्लेसमेंट लेने के बजाय हायर एजुकेशन क्यों चूज किया?
Bluntly सब कुछ ट्राई किया था. I got and I had done all three. The three options at my time were get a job, do CAT and get into IIM, and do higher studies and get a scholarship. I mean, I never had money to pay for it, so if I had got a scholarship, I would have gone there. And I had all three options in my hand. I just chose to take the one which I thought was the best at that point in time. It was a greedy choice, meaning that it was not some long-term directional of my life. It was just that given my CAT score, what I had an option was not a very good IIM and not a very good B school if I had gone outside IIM. Given the job that I had in hand, it was paying me something like 5 lakhs per year, which was not very good in those times. It was reasonable, but not very good. And then I had an offer from Princeton, which was a top 10 school. So then, top 10 school it is.
आपको किस आईएम में मिला था एडमिशन?
I actually don't remember. Yeah, I remember it was some 99 something percentile, but I don't think I ended up going there for that interview, or I think there was some second round. I don't remember the details, but I had reasonable enough percentile that I remember, but it was never realistically an option. It was basically job or this.
So आपने आईआईटी में क्यों नहीं सोचा हायर एजुकेशन?
Good question. Again, a function of people around me. The top people were going abroad, so I just went abroad. But at that time, IIT में ज़्यादा research थी भी नहीं. It's a little controversial, but if I now look back in those times as a student and I try to evaluate my professors or the professors that I saw, only 20% were really doing R&D. IITs in those days were mostly teaching institutes. I didn't see top of the line research happening around me. Even that time, I was told that IISc is the shining beacon where things are a little different, but had no exposure to IISc, so it was not an option. Um, and IITs were not an option because I didn't think world class research was happening there. Things have changed since, but at that time, no.
ओके. और प्रिस्टन में आपकी लाइफ कैसी थी?
Up and down as any other life. I had a very good circle. I mean, what was good was I had excellent circle of friends. Still in touch with them. Um, very good advisor, very hands-free advisor. I've learned a lot from him. A good department, a good, I guess let's call it exposure. We were living next to New York, so that was also interesting. But the bad was Princeton is a small town. Initially, if you go from a place like India to a town like Princeton, the immediate thing that hits you is loneliness. But within first 6 8 months, I was able to make friends, and then that was not an issue.
ओके. और आपकी पीएचडी लाइफ में क्या टफनेस आई?
Oh, I almost left it. I never thought of myself as a PhD person. I still don't. I don't think I'm a typical professor. I'm not that smart as many other people. And it's more important. Like I don't think my skill set exactly matches what a typical professor skill set is. I always thought of myself more of an industry person. So after 2 years of doing PhD, I was not enjoying my project at that point. So I went to my advisor and said, "I'm going to leave. I don't think this is for me." And he said, this is very common. Even I almost dropped from my PhD. I'll do the same thing to you, what my advisor did to me. Take 2 weeks off, go figure out. Here are three names of people. Two of them left their PhD and then joined industry and doing fine. One of them continued their PhD and they're also doing fine. So decide whichever you want to do.
ओके.
And yeah, so I talked to three people. I did not take 2 weeks off. I continued working, but I did talk to those three people and they gave me some perspective. And we can talk about that if you really want a longer answer. But then I was like, okay, fine, I'll finish my PhD.
सो मतलब सब ऐसा फील करते हैं ना कि मुझे पीएचडी क्विट कर देना चाहिए थोड़े टाइम बाद?
Huh, because it does. I mean, you can. There's a valid question to be asked. What is the role of a PhD? What does it accomplish? Because it is a rather longish commitment. And why should you do it? I think it's healthy to ask those questions, and it's better to have answers to those questions instead of getting frustrated 5 years from today. Because I mean, this is something I keep telling some of my own students who are in the doldrums. You see, the number of jobs actually reduce after you do a PhD because you are overqualified for 90% of the jobs out there. So it's very important that you do PhD with your eyes open. Okay, it's not a PhD is not a natural extension. Oh, you did 11th, then 12th, then BTech or BSc, and then you did MTech and MSc, and then you did PhD. It is not a linear thing. It's a specialized degree for a specialized set of careers. Most people who want to do industry and they should just finish their BTech and then finish a master's of their choice, whether it's MBA or MTech, doesn't matter, and then go join the job. I don't think there is it should not be, it is the natural extension of the next degree. It's not an employment delayed program.
yes.
There's no need to cheapen PhD like that.
Yes, people are thinking like that. And so मतलब अब वहाँ पे रह के आपने फिर वहाँ सेटल होना क्यों नहीं सोचा? वापस इंडिया क्यों?
I socha, as everybody does. It again boils down to what you want. Very bluntly, I always wanted to come back. कह सकते हो कीड़ा पहले से था, but again, the decision gets made somewhere internally in your mind, and then you come up with a justification. So I can give you the justification I gave myself. So when I looked at potential, again, I looked at the opportunity. So I had a job in hand, I had an offer from IISc, and then I started evaluating what I wish to do. And that time, one of the sort of guiding principles in all of this is I always try to take the greedy approach. What I think is best at that point in time, best as in most challenging, harder to do, has the better peer group, because I have sort of noticed that pattern in my life that I'm a function of my peer group. So if I get an option between a top institute and a second run company, I will go to the top institute because they're better people, they will push me harder. So anyways, coming back to it, so the justification at that point was I had a consulting job, and what I very quickly realized was that I'm not extremely important to the way that company runs. I mean, I would be just another employee. and I can work very hard and do very well, but I can be replaced anytime. I'm irrelevant in the larger scheme of things. And that was true for most places. And then I looked at, okay, but however, being a prof in one of the best institutes at that time, SciENSE was coming up, it was one of the better departments, I could see it coming up. And I'm like, having a successful solar research program in one of the top departments in the country probably matters. I'm not replaceable.
Yes.
And that is important. So I guess it boils down to, this was always going to give me less money. You staying in the US would give you a better life, would give you more money, it is better for your family. But do you want a more comfortable life or do you want a more consequential life? And I just lean towards consequential.
और आपका आईएससी में एक्सपीरियंस कैसा रहा?
Great. Again, I'm very lucky. I happen to be in CeNSE. I'm not kidding. Now I have Vantage, right? I've seen other departments function. I think not all departments are equal. I'm very lucky to be in CeNSE.
Yes. Science is too good. And sir, so आप आपका रिसर्च वर्क एक स्कूल स्टूडेंट को समझाना चाहते हो तो कैसे समझाओगे, कैसे एक्सप्लेन करोगे वो?
I mean, in that way, solar cells easy. It's basically converting light into electricity. But more generally, what my research is basically we are trying to come up with new materials or new devices to manipulate electronic signals, mostly interaction between light and electrons, and manipulating the two so that we can make interesting devices and sensors that you can use. I don't know if that is simple enough. I should try that on my daughter and see if she understands it.
So आपकी डॉटर समझ सकती है ये सब?
Not necessarily. I try. So, but one thing very good with her is she'll be very blunt when she doesn't understand. So she'll think about it for like 5 seconds and she'll, Papa, I don't understand. And then I know, okay, I need to come back at it again through some other angle. And that's the charm of being a father, right? It's a lot of fun. Anyways, coming back to, कुछ कुछ समझ में आता है, कुछ कुछ नहीं आता है. It depends upon how I explain.
So like स्टूडेंट्स है ना, चूज करने से पहले बहुत सोचते हैं, ये उनको नहीं पता होता है. इवन स्कूल स्टूडेंट्स को तो क्या, बीटेक स्टूडेंट को भी नहीं पता होता है कि क्या करना है लाइफ में आगे क्या. तो फिर उनके लिए ये जानना जरूरी कि यहाँ क्या रिसर्च हो रही है, कैसे हो रही है. और इंडिया में नहीं है लोगों के पास ये इंफॉर्मेशन कि इंडिया में रिसर्च भी होती. लोगों को ऐसा है कि पीएचडी इसलिए ही करनी चाहिए क्योंकि जो आपने रीजन बताया वो, या फिर प्रोफेसर बनना हो तो. इसके अलावा लोगों के पास कोई, उनको पता ही नहीं है कि स्टार्टअप रन कर सकते हैं, हम इंडस्ट्री में जा सकते हैं. और इंटरडिसिप्लिनरी डिपार्टमेंट का लोग सोचते ही नहीं है, क्योंकि लोग वही सोचते हैं कि ओके ठीक है, हम जो पहले से है डिपार्टमेंट्स वहीं जाते हैं. क्योंकि मुझे भी नहीं पता था साइंस क्या है पहले, फिर उसके बाद पता चला कि ओ इसका आगे जाके फ्यूचर तो होगा. तो आपको क्या लगता है साइंस सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री में इंडिया के इकोसिस्टम को कैसे सपोर्ट कर रहा है?
Longer answer, but in some ways, to general point कि people don't know, that is to some extent our fault. We just need to do better in communicating. We are trying, but we need to do better in communicating. Some of that is probably because हो क्या रहा है कि the rest of the India still is conservative. So, for example, we still struggle with this idea. We fight it, but we still struggle. Ki outside the top echelon of IITs and IIScs, faculty selection still is very myopic. If a mechanical engineer mechanical engineering is high, they look at traditional mechanical engineers. They still don't necessarily have that sense कि hey, semiconductors में भी mechanical engineers use होते हैं या. I mean, the max they have gone is कि now understand कि automotive is mechanical, but they will not go and start talking about robotics as mechanical, or they will not talk about embedded systems and control systems and motor. I mean, I guess I'm trying to get at is that the older definition of mechanical engineering is still the dominant narrative in most places. And that is mostly because systems have not grown. So that then gets fed back to the students, जिनको ये feedback मिलता है कि stick to the core department, whatever that means. IISc में एक बार डिस्कशन हुआ था कि maybe we should get rid of all departments and we should just have faculty of IISc. Why do we need these labels? The labels are only for some level of signaling, but sometimes they are counterproductive, and this is one example. Coming back to the question, how are we helping the ecosystem? So there are many ways in which you can help an ecosystem. So the most important thing that we feel that we do is R&D. um, R&D के दो reasons हैं. One is of course you actually develop some technology the society can use. And that is one thing where SENSE I think does better than most, where we actually try to translate into something that a user can actually hold in their hand, not just a paper or patent. Most of our customers tend to be from the defense industry, simply because they don't get the technology, they cannot buy things off the table. But we also work with civilian sector. The goal is to translate something. The other thing that we do is in that process of creating R&D, we also train a whole bunch of people, and that kind of skill set is important because even if we don't to create something that industry can use today, we can create the person who can do the R&D that industry needs today. So that's, I guess, our PhD students are probably one of our most important products. The second thing that we help is in short-term requirements. Short-term requirements could be of training. So Tata Electronics hired 130 employees, fresh graduates, know nothing about semiconductors, and they wanted to send them to Taiwan for training. Fine. Before they go to Taiwan, you can send them to SENSE. We will talk to them, we will train them for a month. That's what happened. They were here in 2024 July, and then they are better prepared to absorb the technology once they are sent to Taiwan. So those kind of short-term trainings is what we do.
फिर सर लोगों के पास है ना ये इन्फॉर्मेशन नहीं पहुंच रही. लाइक जो लोग है ना मतलब लिंक्डइन पे स्क्रॉल करते हैं या फिर गूगल करने में बहुत अच्छे, उन लोगों के पास इन्फॉर्मेशन होती है, पर एक स्टूडेंट के पास जो प्राइवेट कॉलेज से है और उसके पास स्किल सेट है पर उसको कोई कॉलेज नहीं मिला तो उसने प्राइवेट में ले लिया, तो उसके पास नहीं होती है इन्फॉर्मेशन, तो वहां तक हमको इन्फॉर्मेशन पहुंचानी चाहिए ना.
Yes, so we are trying to do. जैसे अब now we have an outreach office, but what we have also to understand is कि there are limitations, right? What is the limitation? It's, as always, it's of capability. I'm a good professor, but I'm not a good marketing person. I'm not good at engagement. I don't sort of understand this new age. Like we are doing this interview, but as I think I mentioned to you, it does this. The model doesn't make sense to me, right?
Yes.
I'm old. So it's also our incompetence in some ways of understanding this new way of communicating to the world, because this is needed. We get that, but in the modern world, communication, you can call it marketing, communication, engagement, whatever word you want to use, but outreach is important. We get that.
Yes.
But that doesn't mean we have the skill set to do it well, because when we are growing up, that was not something that we had imbibed. So then you hire some young people. That's what we have done. You try to sort of engage with the system the best you can. But as in many things in society, change happens funerally. You see, nobody changes. It's very hard, especially at my age. What actually happens is I just get replaced by somebody better. Okay, so I already see that I'm maybe slightly better than my older colleagues in this, but my younger colleagues are much better than me at this. And if you keep doing things well, karma बढ़ता जाएगा.
और मतलब लाइक सेंस में लोग कैसे ज्वाइन हो सकते हैं एज अ इंटर्न और पीआर?
For basically BTech type, basically bachelor students or master's students?
Bachelor students.
So there are a couple of ways. So one is that we have certain outreach programs that we run with our industry partners. So Lamb Research के साथ हमारा एक project है, and the idea there is कि the faculty from nearly 60 institutes came to us. We gave them some course curriculum and some material, and then they were supposed to use that to launch courses in semiconductor technology in their respective institutes. Now the students who take those courses, a subset of them, we ask them to come for internships.
Okay.
So if you take those courses in those institutes, then can come. The other way we do that is we also have some MOU, we have some academic affiliates through the IIT program, where we have signed MOUs with 10, 12 universities, and the undergrad projects of those universities, if selected, can come and be executed in SENSE. So that's one way. The third that we sort of realize is there's a much larger population of people that we are not serving. End of the day, the problem becomes somebody has to pay for it. DA, and also just school time. Right? Somebody has to pay for something. So the way we currently do it, we have a summer school and a winter school. So summer, as the name suggests, in summer, and in winter we organize an online session. And the students who do the top, I think the top 10% or top 15% in summer winter schools, then we again invite them for an internship in the coming summer.
Oh, nice.
So those are the ways in which.
This thing.
So that's how we select our interns. if you sent an email to a professor, there's a good chance they have not responded, because this, like, we have a centralized process now.
Yes.
And the last is the REP program, which is recently launched, where not for internship but for a longer term research project. If you're interested for a 6-month or a year-long research project, you can come through the REP program. The details are online. But those are some of the ways in which we try to do the best we can. We are still a rather small department, so we are limited by how many we can accommodate, but we try.
वैसे मेरा एक्सपीरियंस तो साइंस में बहुत अच्छा रहा है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे मैं ना सिर्फ लाइक मैं ईसी ज्वाइन कर लेती या डेसे ज्वाइन कर लेती, तो मेरा ऐसा होता है कि मुझे सम सेट ऑफ पीपल ही मिलते हैं कि लाइक इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स या इलेक्ट्रिकल बैकग्राउंड से ही मिलते हैं, ज्यादा से ज्यादा इंस्ट्रूमेंटेशन वाले मिल जाते हैं। पर यहाँ पे मैं बात कर रही हूँ लोगों से, फिर पता चलता है अच्छा उनका मटेरियल बैकग्राउंड है, फिर मैकेनिकल से भी लोग यहाँ पे है, और अभी तो मैंने देखा है कि एक सीएस वाली लड़की भी अभी ज्वाइन की है। तो सर यहाँ पे ना ज्यादा एक्सपोजर मिलता है, लोगों के काम के बारे में जानना बहुत अच्छा लगता है।
How, and that's one of the advantages of doing manufacturing. So traditionally, when people think of semiconductors, जब लोगों की Intel में जॉब लगती थी या AMD में जॉब लगती थी या Nvidia में जॉब लगती थी, so what they were basically doing was not manufacturing; they were basically doing design. They were sitting in front of a computer and making blueprints. That just requires electronics and software की थोड़ी knowledge and electronics की knowledge. That did not require manufacturing. But as soon as you have to interact with the physical world in any measurable sense, when you have to make something, when you have to do package a device, when you have to bond a device, when you have to actually get electrical contacts out, there is no option but to get multiple people involved in the room, because stresses हैं, thermal management पे है, electrical signal integrity है. These are not easy problems to solve for just one person. So that's just a consequence of just, if you, even this is true by the way in other disciplines, if you're trying to make a car or an automobile, 40% of the automobile these days is electronics. So there is no way to make a car without getting everybody in the room. Similarly, there is no way to do electronic manufacturing without getting everybody in the room.
सर मतलब interdisciplinary में work करना it's good for.
I would argue. So I mean, these days everybody talks of AI and how replaceable everybody's jobs are. In my humble opinion, the last jobs that will ever get replaced are which are at these boundaries, because they often require knowledge and input and experience from both sides. In fact, I was recently listening to an interview where somebody was arguing that whole problem that Intel faces currently, Intel is not doing very well, and apparently one of the fundamental problems that they are suffering is because they fired all their senior people thinking that this is simple. I mean, they wanted to cut some costs. They're like, why should we have a 55-year-old, 35-year-old can do their job? It's end of the day just a simulator. What they sort of missed was there is a certain, when you actually build something physically, right? Like being a baker, you sort of develop an intuition. There are people who will put a finger in your cake and taste it like, 10 degrees more. It's not quite right. And that experience, that working with hands is not easy to replicate.
Yes.
And those kind of jobs will be the last ones that robotics or AI will ever replace, because it's not easy to explain what that knowledge is. It just is a bunch of experience and intuition and thumb rules that you accumulate with time.
So, sir, you are good at researcher and professor. So, आपने startup के बारे में कैसे सोचा?
Again, I was never thought of myself as an academic. Maybe that's partly it. I actually tried a startup even Princeton with my advisor. That was what I did the last 2 years that I was there. Did not work out. It was a terrible idea. There was also financial shutdown, financial crisis हो रहा था उस समय, so it was not the best time to do a startup. And I did not do a good job of it either, to be honest. So, anyways, तो startup मेरे दिमाग में था. The reason I want to do a startup is because I want to translate something. Beyond a point now, paper छापना is not satisfying. It becomes a little boring. It's good for students. It's important for students, but I don't know if I'm adding much to the system publishing that N+1 paper. Something going into the world, something somebody actually using, somebody actually touching. I think that's important. So that's the reason.
मतलब आपने स्टार्टअप के बारे में मतलब कैसे आप मतलब प्रिंसटन में आपने जो सोचा था वही आपने वहीं से स्टार्ट किया ये दूसरा है?
No, it's a complete different idea. What it's not the same idea, because ideas don't have that longer shelf life. What was a good idea in 2008 is not a good idea today.
Yes.
But what you do take, what travels is what how do you what is a good idea for a startup? Okay, what is the definition of a good idea? Maybe that's where you start. How do you make a business plan? What do you need? What should be your goal posts? And there's also then again the ecosystem also, right? So I learned a lot from Vasu about how to manage a startup, how to create a startup, how to create pathway for creating a deep tech startup in India. My wife is involved a little bit in the startup world. She is on the finance side of things. I have seen her interact with companies, valuing companies. So without realizing, but I have sort of gleaned a few nuances of how these things are done. And you take all of that, put your technical knowledge in it, and try to see if you can come up with a recipe that works.
So अब आपको कैसा लग रहा है कि मतलब स्टार्टअप आपका कैसे वर्क कर रहा है?
Oh, we are not doing very well right now in my humble opinion. We need to do much better. We will know in the next 6 months how we are going. I mean, raising funds is non-trivial. Figuring out that first product, that first rupee of revenue is probably the hardest. So we are still chasing that first rupee of revenue. I mean, profit बहुत बाद में आता है, but the first rupee of revenue is very important. So we're trying to get there. We're trying to get to our first product. The challenge of deep tech in India is that it's one thing to get a bunch of people together and launch an app. The processes for that are sorted. It's quite another to come up with, say in this case, a solar cell and figure out where you will get your materials, where you will manufacture it, who is going to give you your material and also tools, who will build your tools, who will maintain your tools. And the upfront investments are much higher because you are setting up a factory. So it requires more patient capital. There are more risks involved. You don't fail as quickly as you do in an app. You launch an app, it works in a few months, or it doesn't work and you move on. That's not the case here. So that's what's challenging about it. We are trying to figure out those challenges. I don't know if the Indian ecosystem yet has figured how to do that. India is also a much more capital poor country, meaning कि compared to US or Europe, हमारे पास इतना पैसा नहीं है. We are poorer. There's no denying it. I mean, कुछ लोगों के पास बहुत पैसा हो सकता है, but we are still on an average poor. तो the same company को पैसा US में और यूरोप में ज़्यादा आराम से मिलेगा, इंडिया में ज़्यादा मुश्किल से मिलेगा. More people will ask questions because they have less to spare and they have a lower risk appetite. So, but again, the first people through the door are always bloody. You need to try things. You need to figure out things. नहीं तो कुछ भी नहीं होगा.
और जो रिसर्चर है अभी और वो लोग स्टार्टअप का सोच रहे हैं, तो उनको क्या गलती नहीं करनी चाहिए?
Don't fall in love with technology.
Okay.
Nobody cares how cool the technology is. Nobody cares how interesting it is, how unique it is. End of the day, what you have to rapidly come towards is a product that somebody is willing to pay money for. Most startups don't fail because their technology was not good enough. Most startups fail because their business plan, preparation, and people were not good enough. So don't fall in love with your technology. Nobody cares, and nobody should care. Do you have a plan? Can you stick to the plan? Can you make a team? Is that team good? Can you execute and work towards, define a product and then work towards the product, get all your ducks in a row, and then make that sale? It is not necessarily, it does not necessarily come naturally to a PhD student who has just thought about technical stuff for 5 years. It requires you to take a step back and explore a few different sides of your personality.
और इंडिया में अभी आपको क्या लग रहा है कि स्टार्टअप कितना आगे जाएगा?
India is too big a market for these things to not succeed in some shape or form. Okay? It is, I mean, I was looking at this statistic, right? If you are a baby today and what is the probability of being born in China plus India versus the rest of the world? So there's a 43% probability that a baby born in this world is born in India and China. That's just too large a population to not have aspirations, capability, and ideas. Okay, good ideas will come. What we have to do is just, there is enough seeds. What we need to do is create the land that is fertile enough, with enough water, with enough resources, with enough systems, कि वो जो बीज है वो पनप पाए. So that is the job of our generation in some ways. We have to. That's what I meant by figuring out systems and all. It's not just कि मेरी startup के लिए क्या काम करेगा, but at a sense level, we have an incubator, right? So what is that incubator trying to do? Figuring out how to make this work. in an Indian context with the Indian resources, Indian challenges. Uh, and once you figure it out, then it will be available. And the classic example is IIT, right? I mean, there was a generation that figured out how to do high class technical education in India. And once they figure it out, then the output is for everybody to see, and it seems trivial and simple. And but go and talk to any other country who's trying to create an IT system with that brand name today. Many countries tried, they did not succeed. So the similar startups will happen, semiconductors will happen. There needs to be a generation that figures out the details, so the next generation can take over.
So सर आप बोल रहे हैं जैसे कि दूसरे लोग हम आईआईटी जैसा माहौल बनाना ट्राई कर रहे हैं वो सब, पर फिर भी हम पीछे क्यों है सबसे?
Yeah, there's no other way to say this, and this is a little controversial even among my colleagues. It is. I'll just say what is it not. It's not corruption. Everybody talks about corruption. Nobody cares. Corruption is just a tax. It does not prevent anything from happening. It just slows it down or makes it more expensive. But it doesn't stop anything. It's not corruption. It's not education. It boils down to, in my humble opinion, personally, competence. We as a society need to be more competent. If you are a plumber, you need to be a better plumber. If you are an electrician, you need to be a better electrician. If you are a professor, you need to be a better professor. If we as a, I'm seriously speaking, like there is this notion that Indians are very smart and Americans are dumb and Europeans are dumb. I have lived there. There is no such thing. The problem is you are comparing your top of the line ITM with a random person walking on the street and looking at an interview and say, ha ha ha, he doesn't know geography. That's not apples to apples comparison. Compare the top engineer there and top engineer there. I'm willing to bet on an average, they are just better at their job than we are. We just need to get better at everything we do. If you're creating videos, create better content. If I'm a professor, I need to teach better, I need to do better research. We just need to be better. And some of this is a matter of time.
मैंने एक ना वीडियो देखा था, उसमें ऐसा था कि एक मतलब न्यूज़ चैनल था, तो पूछा था कि आप सब जगह से क्या हायर करते हो, तो कोई टेक्नोलॉजी हायर कर रहा था वो सब, फिर पूछा कि आप इंडिया से क्या हायर करते हो, तो बोला कि आईआईटीएंस को हम लोग हायर करते हैं, और लाइक वहाँ पे है ना पैसा भी ज्यादा मिल रहा है और रिस्पेक्ट भी मिल रही है, सब है, और यहाँ पे ना उतनी रिस्पेक्ट नहीं मिलती लोगों को, तो लोग यही सोचते हैं कि इट्स ओके, हम वहां ही चले जाते हैं, और पर वो वैसे देखने जाए तो बहुत बुरा है हमारे लिए, क्योंकि इंडिया बहुत पीछे रह गया है, और वो सारी कंट्री इसीलिए आ गए क्योंकि वहां पे इंडिया के लोग काम कर रहे हैं। सो लोगों की माइंडसेट कैसे चेंज करेंगे, आपको इंडिया में रहना चाहिए।
टेकिंग एग्जांपल्स, देखो बदल रहा है, मैं बता रहा हूँ, मेरे समय से अभी समय बहुत बदल गया है। माय एडवाइजर एक्चुअली ईमेल्ड मी वन डे एंड आस्क्ड मी कि इंडिया से एप्लीकेशन बहुत कम हो गई हैं, व्हाट्स हैपनिंग। दैट्स अ गुड थिंग। So it will just be, that's what I meant. It's an issue of time. It's just as systems get better, as people get more opportunities. I mean, we spend so much time talking about startups, right? Believe me, when I had graduated from IT, ऐसी बातें नहीं होती थी. This was not in the air. मेरे पापा के जनरेशन में प्राइवेट जॉब्स की बात नहीं होती थी. It was just about government jobs because private jobs are not in the air. ठीक है, मेरे टाइम तक कोई गवर्नमेंट जॉब नहीं ज्वाइन करना चाहता था. NTPC came, there were like 5 students who went there for the interview. So what I'm saying is systems change with time. Some of these things just need to pickle and become better, but they also need to be success stories, and that is where ki abhi semiconductor mission hai, quantum mission hai, they need to become success. Just like IT revolution created a wave in 1990s, right? And we are still riding that wave. We need to create more such waves. I guess success of India as a country depends upon it.
आपको क्या लगता है कि इंडिया टेक्नोलॉजी में सबसे पीछे है? वो तो सबको पता है, पर वहां तक कब तक पहुंचेगा?
थोड़ा सा we have to parse this. इंडिया पीछे, okay, इंडियंस पीछे नहीं है. देखो what I mean by is कि let's take the classic example of semiconductor, which I understand the best. ठीक है, there are no semiconductor manufacturing plants in India yet, but there are Indians in semiconductor manufacturing plants.
Yes.
So it's not like we are not educating them rightly, IITs or other place, but even outside IITs, there are enough people who have gained knowledge here and are employable outside. What we lack is we lack manufacturing. and what we lack is that culture of translation, and I think they are related. इसके कई reasons हैं. I'm not a social scientist, but what I can comment on is the following. One is that we historically we have not been, most of our business houses are what I would call trading companies. Left से लिया, right पे बेचा. They take commission on the transaction, but they are not necessarily into manufacturing in any serious
Yes.
way. Most big business houses, ठीक है. Even those who were into manufacturing what I would call safe goods. They were never entrepreneurial in taking risk and manufacturing something new. The goal always was हमारे पास एक capital है and we will invest it, and हमें पता है कि guaranteed 8% return आएगा, guaranteed 10% return आएगा. तो स्टील प्लांट लगा लो, शुगर केन फैक्ट्री लगा लो, नट्स की फैक्ट्री लगा लो, बोल्ट की फैक्ट्री लगा लो, बट यू नेवर विल सॉर्ट ऑफ थिंक यू नो व्हाट, लेट्स come up with the next Lamborghini. That was never the ambition. And again, you can go back to that. Some fundamentally maybe coming, we were never that rich to begin with. Like there was mostly a conservative culture coming from a place of scarcity, which partly are government policies. I mean, Bob Noyce, who was Fairchild CEO, CXO, I forget, came to India, wanted to set up a semiconductor plant in 1960s. He was not given permission to open a big enough factory. He said, he wanted some 10, 20 million units ka production, and the Indian government only was giving them a license for 10,000. 1960s, right? So we also pushed people who were willing to, because of our policies away, because public sector, whatnot, nonsense, license raj. Some of those tendencies still remain. And the third thing that I think the reason is ki what doesn't help India is also our culture. We are, you put 100 people of Indians in a room, and very quickly we will segregate based on language, region, caste, religion, and they will stop working with each other. I don't understand this.
Yes.
And that is a huge problem, because you see, if I am a scientist and I cannot talk to a person who is working on the shop floor of a factory, how will we ever talk about this is my problem? Can you think of a way to fix it? How will we collaborate if we never even meet?
Yes.
I mean, forget about interacting in any reasonable fashion, but the society is so badly segregated. We don't live in the same places. Our kids don't go into the same schools. We don't eat in the same places. How will we ever meet? And that really puts a breaker on how innovation happens. So some of these tendencies are now changing in cities. That's why cities are so important. Like all India's innovation happens in cities, because cities are in that way slightly more unsegregated. I guess what I'm trying to say is these are some of the problems, but I see them changing every day.
Yes.
It's just a matter of time, hopefully.
So मतलब इंडिया का जो हमारा पुराना कल्चर है, जो अच्छा नहीं है हमारे लिए, वो हमारे रिसर्च और वर्क को अफेक्ट करता है.
Absolutely, absolutely, very, 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 very tremendously.
और इंडिया में अभी रिसर्च कैसे हो रहा है?
So it's improving much better. Like I mean, IISc, for example, gets a lot more competition now than it did say 20, 30 years ago, when it was the only reasonably good research institute in the country. That's not true anymore. I mean, even then maybe it was not only, there were a few others, but what I'm trying to get is the competition is much higher. It's much higher probability of finding good faculty in other places. You see, that's another bit that's sort of important. Like for innovation to happen, right, for a product to get made, I need to make a better sensing element. Somebody has to figure out better packaging. Somebody has to figure out better PCB board. Somebody has to figure out a better electrical design. Somebody has to figure out a better system machine to put this all in. And we all need to talk to each other so that something comes out, right? What was happening one night, the number of people in our research is so few that I had no overlap with the next person, and who has no overlap with the next person. So the chain was not propagating. But now there are enough people where you can actually find a chain that actually ends with something manufacturable or productizable. So because of that broadness, the bench is becoming bigger, the bench strength is rising. There's a lot more interaction, and that's very nice to see. It can be better. India still invests very, very poorly in R&D. Funnily enough, it's not government. People blame the government, but I have looked at the numbers. It's not government. Government gives us something like 0.6, 0.7% of the GDP in R&D, which is low, but not as low compared to other governments. Where India really misses is when people say Israel has 4% or Korea has 4%. If you look at the numbers, the government still only do 1%. The balance 3% is industry. So in India, the industry doesn't invest in R&D, and that has been my major cribbing with most of them. Like again, they're mostly what I would call trading agent type mindset. They don't think in technology terms. They don't think of being leaders in technology. They're general. I mean, I have been in board meetings where I have presented a proposal or something big, something interesting, something new, and somebody asked me this question. This is real. Like Sushobhan, all this is very cool, but very bluntly, why should we develop anything? Let them develop it at their cost. Once they have developed it, we'll just import it. No, and that is the mindset.
It's very bad.
It's not bad. You have to look it from their perspective. You see, when you use the word bad, you make a moral judgment.
Yeah.
And at that point, the conversation ends. It's very important to understand why are they saying it. They're saying it because given their incentive structure, given their financial structure, and given what their job description is, this is what they have been told to think. Now, if you want to make this change, and if you realize this is a change, then you go and talk to the people who have created those three things and say, okay, can we do something better, right? So, for example, in this case, one of the driving factors in US for new technology is defense. They are not. ऐसा नहीं है कि the reason they invest so much in technology is because they are very, let's call it, evolved global people. No, they are also just as selfish and just as narrow-minded. It's just that defense industry and the pressure to be the top in defense forces them to be innovative. The system forces them to be innovative. You cannot keep making the same tank again and again. There will be a time when the army will say, I want a new tank with these new technologies, and you then scramble to find
Yes.
ways to do things better. Similarly in medicine, so that is the push. That's why the companies invest in R&D. So as India goes up the value chain, as we stop just making steel and bolts and nuts, as we start making cars and tanks and stuff that is slightly more complicated, semiconductors, we will also be forced. Okay, what next? Now, if I'm not creating the next technology, this business is dying. So then that motivation will come.
Like हमारी मेंटालिटी पे ऐसी नहीं है ना कि हम टेक्नोलॉजी के बारे में इतना सोचे.
क्यों सोचे? मतलब I'm asking like normal, वहाँ भी normal आदमी नहीं सोच रहा है. What I'm trying to say is कि just like in the West, ऐसा नहीं है कि most of the CEOs are thinking in terms of technology. Fracking is a very interesting and new technology. Why did it come? It came because the traditional way of digging wells and getting oil was not working anymore. And there were a whole bunch of people whose job depended upon coming up with something different. Incentives drive people. There is no point in talking about culture, and there's no point in talking about mindset change. You have to fix the system. You have to fix the incentive structure. You have to, things will automatically happen.
मतलब अभी हमको बहुत काम करना पड़ेगा.
It's always the case, यार. मतलब nations are not built in a day. Nothing is built in a day. And that's again go back to if we just all become better at whatever we are doing, that itself is a win. Automatically things will happen.
आप अभी जो PhD कर रहे हैं, तो उनको क्या एडवाइस देना चाहोगे?
Find good topics, find interesting topics. If the topic is not interesting you and you find it boring, don't do it. That's point number one. Point number two, pick a topic that what I would call has generalizable skills. Meaning that, you see, it's very unlikely that whatever you're doing in your PhD today will be relevant as an R&D topic 5 to 10 years from today. World moves too fast. I worked on silicon heterojunction solar cells. Now I'm working on perovskites. You work on perovskite today. I don't know what the next technology node is 10 years from today. But what you gain from the PhD process is skill sets. You know how to measure devices, you know how to make devices, you understand the importance of material properties and the correlation with electronic properties. You understand how to measure things. So those are the skill sets that you're developing. So ask yourself, what is the skill set? And the last, which is something I repeat in my group meetings often, don't become a mechanic. Don't just be a person who presses buttons, gets data, and without analyzing it, shows it to advisor. Advisor does the analysis and tells them, do the experiments, do these experiments tomorrow, and you again go and do the experiments. Don't be a mechanic. It doesn't pay very well. Become an engineer. Learn to design your own experiments. Learn to analyze your own data. Learn to make your own hypotheses. Learn to test them on your own. Argue with yourself. Learn to, be trained to be your own faculty don't just depend upon the faculty to do all the brain work for you.
यस तो सर मतलब like, आप जैसे बोल रहे हैं उसमें बहुत टाइम भी लगता है, तो पीपल ये भी सोचते हैं कि लाइक ये बहुत टाइम टेकिंग है, और लाइक पीएचडी सब इस एज में कर रहे हैं जहाँ पे इमोशनल इम्बैलेंस भी हो जाता है, घर से प्रेशर आता है कि और पैसे नहीं मिल रहे, और पीएचडी में नहीं मिलते उतने पैसे, सो ये सब होता है, तो उसकी वजह से लोग जितनी जल्दी पीएचडी खत्म कर ले, जितनी
So
जल्दी
that's what I meant. कि PhD should not be thought of as a natural extension. If this is not interesting to you, don't do it. Like then why are you doing PhD? You are right. There are better paying jobs outside in the industry. If you want somebody to tell you in the morning कि क्या करना है, and you just press the buttons and you go home, join a factory. If you want to do, let's call it 20% of the mental work and 80% mechanical work, join an R&D place in an industry. Okay? You don't have to do a PhD. It's only reserved for those people who find this interesting. Because the problem here is na, ki when you don't do the core work of something, then you cheapen it. That's not your problem. But the bigger problem is then you become unemployable for it tomorrow. Matlab, meri problem is ki tomorrow I have to write a recommendation for you. In that recommendation, unless I'm able to say you are an independent researcher, you can think on your own, you can design your own experiments, you can teach other people, what will you do? I need to be able to say those things, right?
yes.
So that's why if you are in a hurry and if you are, that is not interesting to you, don't do PhD. Seriously, not everybody should.
पर लोग है ना पीएचडी ऐसे ही ज्वाइन कर लेते कि मतलब
हाँ, तो that's my
मास्टर
problem.
हो गया,
हाँ, तो
उसके
that-
बाद चलो कर लेते पीएचडी
So then
ज्वाइन.
leave. I would strongly suggest ki if that, I mean, that is true. So my question is ki then you have to answer the same question that I had to answer. Not everybody needs to finish PhD. It's completely okay in my book to analyze the situation in the 1.5 2 years. Every PhD has this comprehensive exam or some basic midpoint where you have to where you ask yourself, is this really what you wish to do? Take that opportunity to analyze if this is what you wish to do every day, and not then find something else. I mean, you only get one life. There is no point in wasting time and your career on something that's silly. Figure out something else that you wish to do. I don't know, if it's photography, then it's photography. I mean, there's no point in being second best at your core job.
यस. और सर अपने अपने गाइड से क्या सीखा है? और
बहुत सारी चीज़ें. Some I can explain, some I just have absorbed. But one of the things, for example, my guide was very hands-on. He himself was very disciplined. 7 बजे ऑफिस में आ जाते थे. And I don't know कितने, मतलब मेरे से तो बाद ही तक रहते थे. I don't know how long, but he always worked hard. He didn't have to. He was a full professor at Princeton. I don't think he needed to. And I saw कि there are people who are self-motivated, do hard work, not because there is a boss sitting on top of them, but because they want to do it. And I thought that was really cool. And I have sort of seen the same here, in sense, as I said, right, I'm very lucky with my peers. There are people here who don't have to work hard, who work hard because they want to work hard. And that is a good place to be in. Then I learned from him. I mean, he had this. There's some people have this knack of not using formulas, but sort of approaching everything from first principles. What happens with formula and all, they are important. But if you just start thinking in terms of formula, just start thinking in terms of thumb rules, it really limits your thinking. You never ask the really important questions. You don't get that insight. He had insight. He would look at a simulation and say, "You're saying this, but it doesn't make sense to me for XYZ reasons. Check your simulation. There is something wrong here." Or I would show some data. Yeah, you are saying it is because of this. This is the cause of, this is the effect. But you see, the cause and effect are not related because of XYZ. Think it again. And that I thought was very illuminating to me. At least I learned a lot from that.
और आप क्या चाहते हो कि आपके स्टूडेंट्स आपसे क्या सीखें?
हाँ, but same thing. I mean, in some ways, what PhD is fundamentally trying to teach is a way to think through first principles, through basically the हमको scientific method बचपन में पढ़ाया जाता है, right? कि hypothesis, testing, analysis, redo the hypothesis. लोग रट लेते हैं, but nobody quite absorbs it. Essentially, PhD is the experimental implementation of that idea. How do you actually do it in real life? That's one. Number two, I wish they take home excitement. Like if you come and join my group and at the end of 5 years you are tired out and you don't never want to do this ever again, then I probably have failed. So it should be, oh, this is interesting. You can change the topic. I have no problems with that, but I should not put you off the field. I should make you more interested in the field.
Yes.
And the last bit is learn self-discipline if that is something that you have not already. At least I had not when I had joined my group, and my advisor sort of very openly said, you can choose to finish your PhD in 2 years or 10 years. I don't particularly care, but you learn to do things on your own. I will not spoon feed it. I will not sit on your head and make you do work. You have to come up with your own motivation. But that is what happens in real life, and that is true. There will come a time where you will graduate, you will go and you will sit in front of a desk, and 80% of the time, if you don't want to work, you will not work.
Yes.
But then you will not grow in life because the output will show. So if you have to learn that self-discipline, that motivation to sort of do your work because you want to do, not because somebody is looking over your shoulders, then learn it here.
सर जब मैं भी ईसी ज्वाइन कर रही थी तो लोगों ने बोला था कि सेमीकंडक्टर वो सब का है ना फ्यूचर नहीं है, और तो आपके टाइम तो सब बोलते ही होंगे क्योंकि अभी तो इतना इवॉल्व हो रहा है, फिर भी लोग है ना मानने को तैयार नहीं है कि इंडिया का फ्यूचर ब्राइट है इफ यू आर ज्वाइन ईसी और समथिंग रिलेटेड फील्ड. तो आपके टाइम पे क्या सिचुएशन थी?
या मैं बता रहा हूँ, मेरे टाइम पे तो ये डिस्कशन ही नहीं हो रहे थे. Nobody was even thinking of semiconductors. At that point, the height of the job market in core electrical discipline was Intel offer मिल जाए and just go join and do design. And to a first order, मेरा project भी वैसा ही था, and that is what I did in my BTech project, and I was ready to do that kind of job. Semiconductor manufacturing was not even on the radar. Nobody was talking about it. I had 0 courses in semiconductor manufacturing. These are all things I learned when I went to Princeton.
Device physics you learned in
Die physics I learned, but even there, my advisor, when she taught device physics, I really understood it. I did not actually quite know. There are levels to understanding. I didn't. कहने को तो PN junction the first time I saw it was in 11th grade, but that doesn't mean I understood
yes. it. Nice. So like उस टाइम पे आपको ज्यादा प्रॉब्लम होती होंगी ना, क्योंकि अभी तो हमको क्या है कि कोई पेपर फाइंड करना है तो हम गूगल स्कॉलर पे जाके हम ढूंढ सकते हैं. उस टाइम पे इंटरनेट वो सब उतना नहीं था. तो आपको क्या डिफिकल्टी फेस हुई?
So my system sort of evolved. उस समय ये सब इतना नहीं था, that is true. But at the same time, the resources, क्योंकि ये सब नहीं था, तो I think there was a more of stress on teaching. There was more access to faculty. If you need to, seniors were very useful. At least in my time, you could always talk to seniors. Like, I learned probably more from my seniors in IT than I ever did from my faculty. And बहुत सारी चीज़ें नहीं समझ में आती थी. Bluntly speaking, if I wanted to become a better device physics engineer, there was not much option. I got lucky. My advisor was very good. He taught me, but not everybody does. In that way, society is better today. There is no doubt about it. Pehle it was not that easy. Very, very motivated people would go to the library, but even then, just knowing which book to pick was self not trivial.
So आप library person नहीं हो?
I used to study in library before exams, but I don't think I ever sat down and started reading journals. There are some people like that. This is what I meant. I'm not a very traditional PhD faculty type of person. Like we have a colleague KLN. KLN is brilliant faculty. I'm not that good.
You are, sir.
I have other skill sets.
Okay. So अब इंडिया 10 साल के बाद कैसे ग्रो करेगा? इंडिया का फ्यूचर कैसे लग रहा है आपको 10 साल के बाद?
In general, bright. Mostly led because of development. Like, again, I go back to it. Like it's just you cannot be such a large portion of the world population cannot remain poor forever. Cannot remain undeveloped forever. Cannot remain unmotivated. Let's call it without aspirations and ideas forever. So it is just bound to change. In my opinion, it will happen simply because people will make it happen. I'm not saying कि कोई destiny लिखी हुई है कहीं किसी ने, but people will make it happen. In general, at least 1 or 2 technology domains India needs to own. Just like IT was basically the last 20, 30, maybe 40 years. And similarly, something new needs to come up. And what that is, I don't know. I hope it's semiconductors. I hope it's devices. Maybe it's AI. I don't know. but there needs to be something where India has a hold. And second thing that will happen is that, you see, people don't think of it right now, but within my lifetime, India population will start reducing. Um, there'll be a very different India when that happens, because abhi Indians are used to ki everything becomes more expensive, the price of house goes up, price of food goes up, Bangalore always becomes more crowded. There'll be a time when ulta will happen. यूएस में मैंने देखा है, यूरोप में ऑलरेडी हो रहा है, जापान में हो रहा है, मैं वहाँ गया हूँ तो मुझे पता है. When that happens, there's a very different world. Pressure on resources will reduce, the amount we can spend on each candidate will increase. So I hope all of this will ultimately contribute कि we can really make an impact in technology space.
और सेमीकंडक्टर इंडस्ट्री को आगे ले जाने के लिए गवर्नमेंट को और क्या करना चाहिए?
Government is doing the best it can. In my opinion, the Semiconductor Mission already has some of the most, let's call it, accommodative terms in terms of how set up industry. What I guess the problem statement right now is that it is very hard to kickstart an ecosystem, because in order to make Tata Electronics investing 91,000 crores, that's a very large amount of money. And you are betting that supply chain aa jayenge, all the chemicals will come, all the materials will come, all the engineers with the right training will come, and everything will happen and things will start moving. Now, if even one of these things is a few months delayed, calculate the interest on that 91,000 investment, right? Yes. 91,000 crore investment. So that is the problem. Everybody assumes that we are all going to be ready on January of 2028 or whatever they want to start. So all government can do is help that. And one of the places where I think government can do a little bit more is the two areas. One is India, sense में हम training कर रहे हैं, but we still, I don't think, deliver training at a scale like sense जैसी बहुत सारी जगह नहीं है. हाँ. Maybe not of this big scale, but we definitely need a lot more places in India which actually do academic training in semiconductor manufacturing, not design. The second thing, and that probably means that many more colleges need to invest somewhere between 5 CR and 10 CR in making labs if a student can actually touch a wafer. The second thing that I think the government can help with is we don't have enough prototyping facilities. It's थोड़ा सा technical हो रहा है, but basically before a technology moves from academia to industry, industry is high volume manufacturing. Academia में you are using R&D tools. Knowing how to make a device in an R&D tool is very different than knowing how to make a device in a commercial foundry. तो उसके लिए होता क्या है, needs to go through something called a prototyping facility. Prototyping facility में you learn how to make the same thing that the idea remains the same, but you do it on tools which are much more commercial. इंडिया में भी वो prototyping नहीं है, कहीं भी नहीं है. So at least one or two places in India need to grow, become big. We are hoping CeNSE is one of those places, but need to become big enough to actually have prototyping capability. क्योंकि जब तक prototype चीज़ें नहीं होती ना, तब तक उसमें कोई commercial investment नहीं होगा. So that's what two things I think government can do: make the base broader by having more institutes who have smaller scale training facilities for students, and then one or two places investment needs to be done on the order of 500 to 1,000 crores. So it's big, but to set up a prototyping place where technology can be prototyped in semiconductors at least.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Done?
Done.
Cool.
So much, sir. I'm always grateful for this thing, and thank you so much, Mukta Didi, देवांश, निशित भैया, विशाल भैया, and all my seniors, जो मुझे हर टाइम कहते रहता है yes तुझे ये करना चाहिए, and I'm blessed with good people around me. So thank you so much guys, and yes, आपको नेक्स्ट क्या देखना है, कौन से गेस्ट में लाऊं, क्या बातचीत करनी है, प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द कमेंट्स. मैं जितना पॉसिबल हो सकता है उतना मैं इंफॉर्मेशन कलेक्ट करने की ट्राई करूंगी, उतने अच्छे गेस्ट लाने की ट्राई करूंगी, और मुझे क्या करना चाहिए आगे, प्लीज लेट मी नो इन द कमेंट्स. एंड थैंक यू सो मच वॉचिंग दिस वीडियो, एंड ऑल द बेस्ट फॉर योर एग्जाम्स. बाय.